Oh, it seems that we are live. Amazing. Hi guys. I have with me Paul Bragiel. Hi Paul.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody.
Paul is from SMOK VC, and we also have Mariusz Gąsiewski from Google. Hi Mariusz.
Hello, it's nice to be here.
Oh, I can't hear you.
Yeah,
I heard him perfectly well on my end.
You can hear him? Okay. So this did happen to us earlier. So what I'm going to ask is, Mariusz, if you can just disconnect and reconnect again. The good restart tends to work, and we'll see.
Okay, let me maybe.
Yeah, he left. Let's hope we get him back. Otherwise, it's a panel.
It's just us chatting about life. Okay, let's try.
Can you hear me right now?
I hear him still on my end.
You hear him? Yeah, this has happened before. So I think I'm going to have to leave, and we can and we will see how that works.
Okay.
I'll leave you on your own for 1 second. You'll be fine, I'm sure.
I'm fine. I'll exist.
I'm back, and now we're waiting for Mariusz. Fingers crossed. Oh, perfect. So I was the problem.
Okay, nice.
I was the problem. Okay, so welcome everybody to the fourth and final panel for today. We are down one guest. We're very sad that Alan couldn't be here today, but life happens. So hi Alan, hope you're watching at home. But I've got with me Paul and Mariusz, and we are going to be discussing quite broadly, but hopefully we'll get into some details, investing around gaming and esport. So I think the first question I have is for you, Paul. You've been investing in a lot of different things for quite some time. What was the general feeling around investing in companies, not necessarily in esport, but in general during the time of the pandemic?
So, I mean, right now we're super active, and being that, we're heavily indexed in games and obviously online companies. So for us, I mean, we're continuing to be very active, and we're actually seeing some very interesting deals. Prices are, for us, sometimes better, which I can't complain about. But yeah, I mean, we take a little bit longer, maybe getting to know the team, or if it's a team that kind of comes in completely blindly, we have to kind of spend more time than we normally would and make a decision. But if we know the team or we worked with them in the past, we could be just as fast, if not even faster than we ever have been in before. So I wouldn't say it stopped us too much. And also then, like, if you look at the public markets, they're performing pretty well too. So that's kind of a good sign as well. But I mean, there was like a 1 or 2 month period where people were kind of freaking out, didn't know what's going on because we had to kind of figure out what is going on. But now people have a pretty decent idea. And I think we're seeing things are quite normal, actually, in my investing world. I do kind of seed in Series A. So now I don't know how it is at Series B or kind of growth things. If you're writing a $50 million check, it might be hard to do that without meeting a person in person. But on our end, it's okay.
Okay, so you've been feeling positive about let's say maybe not about the pandemic, but around business around pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, like I think that if you meet bright young kind of new teams and they're kind of well prepared and they kind of raise enough money to make sure they have enough runway to exist, I think I'm fine with that. The problem is when companies don't have enough runway and they're kind of panicking, and then you can kind of feel that, then it's an issue. But otherwise, if they're well prepared, it's fine.
Okay, awesome. So tell me something. What do you think that a startup, I mean, especially when it comes to esports, but what should a startup be doing to be more attractive to investors?
I mean, the easy answer is, if they're spitting off cash and they're growing like crazy, right? No, but I mean, that's a really bad answer. But I mean,
true though.
No, of course. I mean, that's how every VC thinks, is like, it's like you're ugly until, oh my God, it's beautiful, and oh my God, it's amazing, right? But until you kind of hit that kind of escape velocity, I mean, one, you want to go out there and focus on having, really good teams. So make sure there's people on the team that have very complementary skill sets, and hopefully, as experienced as you can get. You might be a new founder, but maybe you kind of had a lot of experience in respective fields. Two, make sure that you have a good plan about how you can go out there and, what are you going to do with the money and how long it's going to last, and make sure you're raising money for at least 18 to 24 months to show that you're going to be around here for the long term. Also, be super transparent with your investors. Show them, what kind of clients you're talking to, what kind of people you're working with, how you have been doing customer development or how you've been building out your MVP. These things are all very important. And then if you're trying to get into certain VCs, try to come in from multiple angles as well too, or have as many different references or people that could, kind of check that this person's actually real. I think those are the top things. And if you kind of have those all nicely lined up and all packaged together very well, it makes our job much more easier to go out there and do it. The key thing is, like, you want to just avoid red flags, right? If there's things that kind of throw investors off, then they're going to find excuses to no immediately. So the more that you kind of chip away at it and remove, it makes it easier to get to a yes versus a no.
Okay, so that's some really solid advice. And you mentioned something that interested me, which was the red flags.
Yeah.
What to you would be some very serious red flags?
Weird cap table issues, as in, like, you have one person owning 90% of the company, right? You have weird issues where you're not, like, you're not having vesting schedules where, like, all of a sudden, everyone's totally vested and the company's a complete mess, and, like, if somebody quits, they might own a big part of the company. Having founder issues, if you had people quit recently or things are icky, that that's a red flag.
Okay.
Yeah, and then also, there's like big churn in your product, people coming in and out. Okay, why is that? So, like, all these things kind of pop up. But yeah, it's a lot about kind of team dynamics and, like, just the structure of the company. I mean, we see this a lot, especially in certain countries where, like, there's just weird kind of structures of the company or weird ownership, and you're like, why would I want to get involved in the mess? I don't want to come into a mess. I want to come to something very clean.
I don't want to clean it up.
No, it's not my job to clean up, especially in early stage. Now, okay, let's say, they've raised $20, $30 million. They have huge growth, but there's some issues. Okay, then you could overcome that. But, like, if it's 4 people, 3 people, and there's already a mess, we're going to walk away.
Okay, awesome. Mariusz, I would love to hear from you. Your expertise is a little bit different because you're in mobile gaming. So what has been the feeling around investing in that industry right now?
I think, like, if we look at the recent months, like, that was really good period for mobile gaming, at least if you look at the growth of the industry. So I think, like, even if you look at the COVID and all the months where people actually were spending a lot of time either at home or, like, having a little bit less access to the, like, activities they had every day, that they had pretty stunning outcome for the success. I would say I even analyzed a lot of data, and to give you the example, like, if you look at the App Annie data for Google Play, if we look at April for top 20 countries in terms of revenue in mobile gaming, like 14 of them had more than 25% year-over-year growth.
Okay.
In May, it was like 17 out of 20. Yeah, like in May, like out of 20 countries, actually out of 20 countries, 10 countries had more growth than 50% year-over-year. Yeah, so if you look at such data, like from business perspective, of course, it shows a very interesting perspective from the investor side. Like there's revenue and a lot of stuff that was coming out of COVID is just kind of accelerating the growth. Of course, there is a lot of uncertainty, especially at the beginning. I think right now it kind of went away a little bit, but there was a lot of uncertainty, like how to invest. But I think at least from what I see in case of this early stage, it's hard to see really like any negative impact. I would say it's actually I see rather like acceleration of interest, especially that if we look at the like let's say in Poland, like if we look at the growth of 10 Square Games at the stock exchange, yeah. If we look at what's happening at the around some acquisitions, like just recently Zynga acquired Peak Games for almost 2 billion. Yeah, so I think all those things are really put way more interest towards mobile gaming, showing the really strong potential. But then on the other side, it is very competitive market. So that means that at the end of the day, investors want to invest if they have, I would say, more kind of certainty that something will come out of that. Yeah. So that's I would say there are a lot of different spectrums, or there are a lot of different things they're looking at, trying to kind of predict the success of the project.
Okay. And what kind of games what are the trends in the kind of mobile games that are being developed?
I would say there's like a lot of different aspects of that. So if we look at the game genres, there are a lot of game genres that actually have really strong growth in the recent months, like, simulation, board games, puzzle. So from that perspective, what we can see a lot actually is growth of emerging markets. So like, mobile games, not just only about US, UK anymore, but we see actually more and more revenue in different parts of that, like either revenue from in-app purchases or from ads coming from emerging markets like Indonesia, Brazil. So there is like very strong interest in that. Actually, even Poland is getting stronger. Like if we compare the situation today versus 1 year ago, I remember like 1 year ago, Poland was number 20 in Google Play in terms of the revenue based on the App Annie. Right now, it's number 15. Yeah. So actually, this acceleration is coming from many different aspects. Maybe one thing that is actually quite important to mention is just because of kind of this competitive coming to the stage, it's actually more and more serious business. It's not enough to to have like 2-3 guys who just doing a few hours after the job, and then they will have this brilliant idea and they will create another Supercell game or something. Yeah, so it's, I would say, less common. If we look at the top games on the market, like I just recently analyzed top 1,000 in terms of grossing games, and by average they were published more than 3 years ago. Yeah, so like in this case perspective, we see more games in mobile gaming market as really more and more serious projects, and then of course it makes quite significant impact on the whole projects, because with that, like the investors are looking for more serious and business-driven approach in those projects as well.
Sure. Okay. I'm going to have a couple more questions for you, but I want to take it back to Paul for a second, because I mentioned before you've been investing in many different things, but I think esport is something that's quite new for you.
Yeah, relatively. I mean, so I'm super active in the game industry, probably one of the most active game investors in the world. We've done over 100 investments across multiple funds of mine. But esports itself, we haven't done that much. We've done a few investments here and there. We've kind of traditionally been sticking more to the games that the esports we built on top of. And so like part of the thinking we've had with some of these things is like you're building on top of something without actually having a partnership or relationship with those actual games. But that's been changing more. And so now we're kind of opening up to that, and we're investing to companies that are servicing esports games or kind of building platforms. So we're looking a lot more into things, I'd say, in the last 6 months or so.
Okay, and what was the decision behind that?
Well, we just started seeing more founders that we liked. A lot of the stuff we saw a couple of years ago, we thought was overvalued. It was complete bullshit, actually. It's like a lot of people were just, like raising on the hype. They had no connection to gaming, didn't even know the game industry. People just, kind of were flooding in for wrong reasons and starting a company. And we're like, this is not legit, or this is built kind of on a house of cards of sorts. But we're seeing now more and more kind of, solid players coming in. And we're kind of more intrigued. But it was just the quality of founders we saw wasn't as exciting, I'd say, earlier, or maybe we weren't seeing the right deals.
Okay, can you tell me a little bit about any kind of recent investments that you've made in esports?
Well, we did InStreamly, obviously. So, nice one you kind of threw in there. We're also looking at a few other ones we can't announce right now, but one's like another big platform player, potentially a competitor to Twitch. And then also we're looking at some other companies around tools to kind of help enable players and to monetize better. So, but it's across all my various funds, from like SMOK to Sisu to my fund in the United States, Bragiel Brothers. So yeah, we're looking at more stuff like that. But I don't think we'll be investing to like any teams per se. I think that that space, as I said, is a bit overvalued for at least my likes. But I know other people are really into that, so it depends on who you're talking to.
Okay. Do you think that there's any technologies or solutions that are lacking on the market right now? Do you see like a gap that potential startups could fill?
Right now, I mean, I still think that there's a lot to be done around monetization. I think there's a lot more done around fan engagement, kind of building the communities around that. So these are things that we're excited about. Also, I think that there'll be probably more tools that needed to help the actual game companies to do better, right? So anything from like, helping make live ops better to helping, them go out there and kind of build like an esports, I guess, system around them. So I think we're going to see more stuff like that in the future as well.
Okay. And what's also interesting to me is there's a lot of probably investors that are looking to invest in esports, but they've invested in something completely different before. Is there some kind of framework to enter this industry, or?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, in general, like whenever you're an investor and you're trying to get into a new vertical, or even myself, like we enter new verticals all the time. For instance, we're looking at space tech and food and agriculture, which is very different. Yeah. So whenever I do that, I mean, I just come in and I start out small, right? So if you want to come into the space, do a few small checks so that you're kind of in the game. And then you could start kind of making connections from there. Because if you come in and say, hey, we're going to invest, but you haven't written a check, people don't take you seriously, or people like you ask dumb questions and stuff. But if you go out there and you put a small checks and you kind of learn alongside the people that are defining this industry or kind of building big companies industry, then one, you look more educated. Two, other people that are kind of, let's say, further along will take your meeting. It's like, oh, he's already invested or she's already invested into a couple companies in the space. Okay, they're active versus like, yeah, I'm just kind of, looking around. And it's like, no, people are like, especially if you're like a really hot company, they'd be like, why am I engaging with you? You've never done anything in the space and we don't want to deal with you.
Okay, you don't have any experience. We're not interested.
Yeah, I mean, let's say you're a really hot company and, you have multiple offers. Why would you engage with the person who's got no experience versus like, even if you have a small checks, but like, hey, I've been dabbling in the place. I'm interested. I've been learning a lot. And I want to get, now write a bigger check into some company, especially if it's a kind of hot property. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that company will take you more seriously.
Okay, so it's not just important that you've got money; it's also important that you've got experience and you have some knowledge about the industry.
Well, of course. I mean, it's if you're a really hot company and you're trying to, investors are coming to you, then you're going to pick, right? Now, if you have tons of money, you want to give it to people that are inexperienced or not necessarily hot. I mean, of course, you're going to take it. Right? If you're an entrepreneur and you're desperate, or let's just say you're looking for investors and somebody wants to give it to you, you'll take it. I was just saying more if you want to get into the hottest deals or like from the repeat founders or somebody who's like a background that's, super relevant. Those deals can get competitive, and there it helps to have done a few deals in the space.
Yeah, well, not many people are going to say no to $1 million, but it's better coming from someone experienced, I think.
Of course, it depends. I mean, I had a conversation just yesterday with somebody who built a really big company in the gaming space, but also been running gaming kind of esports tournaments. And this person's been saying no to tons of people. So it depends on how experienced you are, right? And they said no to $5 million from an investor, for instance. So it really depends on your experience level. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Mariusz, I'd like to come back to you for a second because mobile gaming is something that's not usually associated with esports or streaming. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, that's kind of true. Yeah. So of course, I would say there are a few different trends like going on. On one side, we see more and more very traditional hardcore games, going to the mobile space. So, and like a lot of those games that in general that started this esport like tradition and trend as well. So that's one side. On the other hand, I think like in mobile gaming, there is a lot of different ways to find new streams for revenue and try to diversify the revenue. And in this case, esport is getting one of them, and especially like a lot of big brands that invested quite heavily in the past and created really loyal base of the users. They're just trying to take just kind of advantage of that, because they saw that on one side it's just a way to increase engagement of the users for their current games and for their current projects, but then on the other hand it can be like the future revenue stream, especially if we look at the connection to brand companies or any companies that just want to connect their brand with the with the like esports stuff.
Okay, if we believe that mobile esports will grow, how do you think that will happen?
I would say I don't feel really I don't feel myself an expert in esports, so that so I would say if we look at the current situation, it's not still the most important part of the mobile gaming for sure. Yeah. So if we look at the the tons of money coming from in-app purchases, like a lot of growth coming from ads revenue. So it's still kind of specific complexity coming out of esport projects. So for like many companies, it's still not kind of the lowest hanging fruit. But then on the other hand, you see again a lot of companies that are like making really a lot of money on some mobile games or on some strategy games and like similar projects. And in some way, this on one side we can think about some revenue streams when someone is earning some stuff via purchases or like via in-app or in-game activity, and then he's using that for more like esport driven activity and vice versa.
Okay.
I think we're also going to see a lot more companies just kind of design their games. Like, so there are certain companies that are thinking, hey, mobile and esports might come together. So it's just going to be from the company perspective. They'll make a game that's a hit and they'll do better. I mean, if you look at, say, Brawl Stars, they designed it with some esport functionality from day one. And I know that's kind of, Supercell's goal. So I think we'll see just more and more companies maybe trying to kind of add that element into the games. And that's, I think, when we'll see a breakout.
Okay.
Yeah, and still it's still coming with specific gaming genres and specific titles that have enough scale and in some way they used like those lowest hanging fruits already, so they are just going to extend their audience and their revenue for way longer, especially in some regions like Asia, like South Korea, like in those regions where actually this is actually really big business already.
Okay, I see that I have one question from our viewers. We're running out of time, but I think we've got enough time for this. And I'm going to have to translate that from Polish on the fly. So bear with me. So a question to everybody. Do you think that investing today in startups with games is a really good idea, because they're going to be worth a lot in a few years?
I'm biased, yes. I mean, like, I have one fund that's fully dedicated to games. It's called Sisu.
So self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah,
we want that.
Yeah, and then obviously, also a lot of my other funds will put into game companies as well too. I'm also seeing a lot of my friends from Silicon Valley are now kind of coming back into games where they were not 2 or 3 years ago, because they're seeing opportunities. Not only around esports, but also around like kind of streaming games. I think that's gonna make a big new trend coming up. And so, yeah, I think that investing in games is a very potentially profitable endeavor, and I'm continuing to do it. And actually, we're raising even more money and putting more money into companies than we have in the past.
Awesome.
Yeah, of course, I agree with that. Maybe I will add that maybe there is some, at least from my perspective, there are some difference between investment in gaming and some other verticals. Like, if you look at the, like, in general investment in any business, you're expecting some traction. Okay, there is some traction, and then I can invest more. Usually, there is kind of difference in terms of gaming, because in many cases in mobile games, there is very little traction for some time, and then you have boom, like very exponential growth, which means that in some ways, on one side, this mobile gaming requires a little bit maybe less risk aversive person. And then I would say more knowledge from the industry than in case of other verticals. Yeah, because like if you look at the specific tech project, you look at that, and not being kind of expert in that industry, you can say more or less, okay, if that idea has some potential or not. If you look at the idea for the game at the beginning, most likely you will find a lot of different similar games kind of out there on the market. So it requires a little bit more knowledge and more kind of specialized knowledge around, okay, what is the difference between that game and other games from the same genre? So that is really kind of high potential, because even some significant players on the market like left some gap to cover, and actually I can cover with my project. And then maybe last kind of difference is that, from my perspective, I see that investment in mobile gaming is rather kind of investment in specific team rather in the specific project. And very often, even the first game of that specific team is not usually successful. Yes, the second game is not really the best one. Yes, also in this case, in many cases, it can be even more long-term driven business than other verticals out there. Yeah. So if you look at that perspective and you know it, and you kind of follow in some way those rules, that business, or you have someone who knows that business, then it's actually really good place to go, because I think especially in our region, one of the kind of important aspect of starting the mobile gaming business is this initial period, which usually requiring investment, and there is pretty low revenue stream for some time. This traction is kind of a little bit smaller than in many other verticals, which means that this initial cost to start the team, start the project is really, really important. And that's why even we as the region for such place, it's a really good place. Yeah, because even if we know that designer can be working from Poland to any other company in the world, still in general start such project is a little bit cheaper in Poland or in Czech Republic versus in Finland. So that's why still it's kind of good lucrative market for especially those early stage projects.
Okay, that was a really interesting insight about them investing in teams rather than the project, because that really puts the focus on investing in a good team and building that team and having a strong team, rather than maybe just having a great idea for a project, which
that's why
necessarily work out.
Mention about that. Yeah, so that's why I would say, I think for many investors, it's, at least from my experience, it's so important to look at what is the dynamic between the people. How do they know? Do you really share the passion for that specific game or the project? Did they work in the past as well together? Because then actually it's good prediction of their dynamics for the future as well.
Awesome. Guys, we're practically out of time. So I want to finish this by asking you the same question that I asked the last guys. So summing up with one word, or one sentence, but I would be really impressed if you did it with one word. The last 3 months of the pandemic in terms of business. One word, Paul.
Give me a second. One word. I'd say fluid.
Fluid. Awesome. And Mariusz?
I would say roller coaster, because it's roller coaster on the, I would say both on the business and emotion side. Yeah, because it's a lot of stuff is not really about, what's out there, but, what are the people's emotions and feelings behind it. And that would be kind of summarizing, in my opinion.
Great.
Nice.
Great. Thank you both so much for joining me today. And for the rest of the audience, I would love for you guys to hang around, because we've got Vicky from InStreamly, and she will be discussing streaming during her webinar. So we'd love for you guys to stay and hang out for that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.